Okay, hello and good afternoon. Welcome to an introduction to some of Section A, where we are going to be taking some time to make more sense of what's going on in the Haydn. And we'll do just a little bit of an example of some analysis of the first movement, and then I'm going to leave the rest up to you all to do some work on. So, like we did in class, I have marked the timestamps that are relevant for our recording because a lot of this is much better to do if you are listening along. You can use your ears to guide you towards the interesting and important stuff that's happening in the score, and then take a look at the score to be more precise with what you're doing. That is also a super transferable skill for Section B. That the more you listen and try to understand what's going on, and now you can verify that with what you see in the score. That's the main skill to develop. We're going to focus a little bit on harmony. So on Manage Back, I put up the document that is chord notes. So we start in the key of G major. We've got our key with F sharp in the key signature here. So anytime you see F, it's going to be F sharp unless otherwise noted. If it helps for you to write in the note names in either the bass clef or the treble clef or both, you can do that. Most PDF editors, either in the Acrobat Reader or in Preview, have a tool that will let you write the note names in or print it off. I did all of my work with this on the hand-done score and then have had to transfer it in. So if you've got this on a hand-done score, or you can just print off some blank staff paper and copy it down yourself. Anyways, here are our 7 chords that make up the key, because one of the things that will help you understand what's going on in the piece of music is the chords. So again, we've got just the root of the chord in the bass clef. That's not always going to be the case, but that's that. So I'm going to, just for fun, if you are someone who wanted to if you wanted to write the notes in, you can either use the comment form, and then you've got that as a reference, or tools you can do fill and sign, and then click U, and then I would write A, C, E. Those are the notes in the 2 chord. So if you see the notes A, C, E, you can assume, okay, there's probably a 2 chord happening, etc. And it's F sharp because the key signature says F sharp. So you can do that for all of this if you want to have that as a reference. We will leave that at that for now, and then we'll talk about where we would go to find this interesting harmony in the piece. So I'm going over to my score, and I would recommend listening from about 104. We're not going to worry about the intro for now. From about 104 until at least 129, or possibly beyond. So just listen to that section for now. Go ahead and pause the video and then come back. So here we go. One of the things for analyzing for elements, we're thinking about everything from the prompt. So we've got timbre and tone color, so what instruments and what combinations. We've got harmony, and we've got dynamics happening very, very obviously. And then pitch for what's happening in the melody. But we're going to just talk for today a little bit about the harmony. It is probably not worth your time to take note of every single chord that's happening through the entire piece, because that would take you forever. But if you're hearing something that sounds like a main theme happening, or if you're following along and you see that a lot of instruments are playing the same note over and over, there might be something interesting happening with the chords there. So I see that these bass instruments are playing G over and over and over. And let me take a look at other notes that are happening in other parts. Hey, look, the viola is playing B and D. So if I wanted, I could just write B and D here. And timpani is playing G, trumpet and horn. We won't worry about the transposing for now. Then if we look at the melody, we have a very low G, and then it jumps up to B, and then in the theme it's D, B, and a G. So we can pretty confidently call this the 1 chord. And so I'm going to go create a little text box here. And G major 1. For clarity, I'm going to change it off of Helvetica and into something like Georgia. So the 1 chord looks like Roman numeral 1 and not like L. So I'm just noting that as I listen to this spot here, the little after 104, G major is the chord that's happening. And so when I'm following along, I just see that the bass is doing G a lot for a lot of this. And it looks like the melody is also following along with a lot of things that are happening on G major as a chord. So, this part here starts on G and goes up to D and B. So it's still focusing around those 3 notes. There's some other stuff happening in other chords, but we're staying mostly around G. And look, as we have more of this unison rhythm happening, the bass is still going G to G to G. There's other stuff happening, but for now, we're still staying very firmly with G happening across most of the parts until we get to here. And notice that we have sforzando marked. So that is another one of those spots where we have dynamics telling us that something different might be happening. So I'm looking at that change. I see E, and I see E, and I see E. Then I'm seeing G and B here. And G is still happening in the timpani, okay? But I'm looking at it and I'm just seeing E, G, and B happening quite a bit. So if we go back and look, and I find E, G, and B as the chord here, then I'm going to switch back and just going to note that we go to a 6 chord for a second. And then we go to A, which is 2. Or that's what I would think at a glance. A, G, interesting, and C sharp. We have our first note that falls outside of the key signature for a second. And so this, we're just going to put a little asterisk there for now. If there's a chord we don't quite get or that's modified in some way, best thing to do is take a look at the chord that happens after or before. So we have D happening for quite a few measures here. I'm looking at the bass right now, just the bass, and I'm seeing D over and over for a number of measures. So we'll just take a look and see if it is a D major chord or if something else might be happening there. Now I'm looking at this violin 2 part, and we have D and F sharp. So F sharp in the lower note, D here, and then A, F sharp. D, F sharp, A, down the scale, D, F sharp, A, down the scale. That's happening in the viola part as well. And we have D, A, F sharp, D. So we are pretty clearly on the 5 chord for this. Hey, look, it's 5. Wonderful. Now, what we have before, so when we're thinking about basic harmony, we got to remember that the 5 chord wants to bring us back to 1. And it will eventually get us there with a whole bunch of G returning here. So this is kind of like a 5 chord building up to our return to 1. And so similar, what's happening here for just a moment is we have a secondary dominant chord. So this is the 5 chord of 5. So if we're thinking about that, we've got A, C sharp, E, and G. And that's going to be a 5-7 chord. It really wants us to pull to 5 to bring that emphasis back to G when we get here. Now, taking a look at this, so it's been pretty harmonically simple most of the time. Haydn has just focused, for now, on things besides the chords. But at the moments where the chord changes, we have other stuff happening to signal that a change might be happening. So, for example, we have, so again, with that in mind, listen along again. And take note of particular things, such as dynamics. So it starts piano for 4 measures, or rather 3.5. Then it goes into this forte section. So I would circle the forte or write forte above. And so we've got a change in both the theme and the dynamics, and really establishing G major as the chord that's going on here. And then there's other chords going there. We'll go back to that later. But that's kind of your basic starting idea for that. And now we've got a sforzando to signal this next chord happening. And then, listening to that, we have this ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba, ba-ba-ba-ba rhythm happening across a lot of these accompaniment parts in this section to kind of wind us down to this piano dynamic, and then simplifies and simplifies, and then we have a return to that earlier theme from before. And hey look, it's forte and we're back at the 1. So this is just one of those things that as you're listening along, mark an asterisk next to a spot where it seems like a lot of stuff happens. Maybe that means you hear a new melody happening, or there's a new instrument, or something is very, very prominent. And then one of the things you can do in that time is take a look at the chords and see if there's something happening in there that makes it unique, or that makes it interesting or worthwhile. So we'll call that a pause for video part 1 for now, because it gets into a bit of a new section here.